Omer, bombs are literally and figuratively dropping all over South Sudan and Sudan in these last 48 hours. The last couple of weeks, we've seen a real intensification of fighting. You've just come back from the border areas between Sudan and Ethiopia and Sudan and South Sudan. Can you tell us what is going on and why is this, or why are we seeing such an upsurge in violence right now, perpetrated primarily by the regime in Khartoum?
John, I was there, and it is amazing that when you are so close to hear the bombs dropped and to feel the ground shaking, it is just fascinating to me to witness this, like we did before in Darfur. We've seen that, and now the whole thing coming back to me again.
The same thing, the same pattern.
While I was talking to the people, the very people that left Kurmuk that morning, and we were about 200, 300 feet from the border with Sudan, in Kurmuk, Ethiopia, talking to these people at around 1:58 p.m. that we heard the first bomb drop. And everybody was silent for a second because the people were thinking of, you know, what they have witnessed, all this killing and bombing in that area. The fascinating thing about it is I talked to different families from Blue Nile, from South Sudan, from the Nuba Mountains, and from Darfur. Amazingly, there is this family from Junaina that ran the entire width of Sudan, from the Junaina, the westernmost point of Sudan, to Kurmuk, the easternmost point of Sudan on that
Almost
side.
like the Lost Boys story, remember?
Absolutely, it's just amazing to me. Thousands of miles that this family was running, and the father told me that I had 2 of my children on the road while I was running, and they came from Al Junaina. They left Darfur around 2005, and they were running all the way to Kurmuk. And then I asked him, I said, why don't you go to Chad? It's closer. And he says to me, no, I was running inside my country. I didn't want to become a refugee in another country. I thought that there will be safety in other parts if there is war in Darfur. But I was wrong, because there was war everywhere I went. And when we went to Khartoum, after Jem, and he said Khalil, but after Justice and Equality Movement attacked Khartoum, they said to me, they were looking for people like us. And he pointed to his black skin. And he says, people like us do not have a place here in Sudan.
Wow.
The conclusion of that to me is that this country is at war within itself in every single part of the country.
And so now these people came across the border, many of these people thinking they were going to get refuge in literally refugee camps in either Ethiopia or in South Sudan, and now in the last 48 hours we've seen bombings
in Upper Nile,
across the border in South Sudan,
and today in
Sudanese.
Yeda, in the refugee camp.
So what does this mean? Is it possible that the war will break out again between the north and the south?
It's a provocation, to put it mildly. It's a provocation from the north to intimidate the south and perhaps to drag it into war. Because the strategy of Khartoum of resolving these issues militarily is still there. Darfur had been there for 8 years. And now the Nuba Mountains, the southern Blue Nile, and maybe the Republic of South Sudan, is because this regime never thought of a diplomatic solution, a peaceful solution to all these challenges that it's facing. It is the strategy of resolving these issues militarily. And if South Sudan is not careful, it will be dragged into war again. And we've seen, history tells us, that any time wars like this reoccur, this round is going to be more vicious than the last round, and I hope that the cool heads prevail. I hope the intervention of the international community will prevent this, and I hope that the negotiations that are hopefully going to happen in the near future between the north and the south will resolve these issues, and we avert this war.
And so beyond negotiations, which are essential, we've both, and enough has been pushing very hard for a cross-border humanitarian operation to go to those populations that are being blocked from getting humanitarian assistance, trapped inside Sudan. And we've been pushing for protection for those populations, particularly through a no-fly zone or some other way that neutralizes the air bombardment that has terrorized these civilian populations.
Absolutely. I think it is essential. I think it is time to do this because the government of Sudan will not give access to these areas to the United Nations or its implementing partners so that they can go and help these populations. Also, the government of Sudan's strategy today is not to allow any displaced camps to be set up inside Sudan because of the experience of Darfur. There's big displaced camps like Kalma and Atash and Zamzam. The government of Sudan thinks that this is what brought the wrath of the international community on Sudan. So in their military strategy now, they will prevent the civilians from congregating in bigger displaced camps inside the country. That is why we see about 30,000 people run away from southern Blue Nile, and they are trickling today from 3 or 4 or 5 entrances into Ethiopia every single day. And so with that, we have to work together with the international community and try to have cross-border humanitarian operations, and we have to have protection for the civilians, like you said, because without that, we are in for a long, protracted war and a disaster that is looming before the end of this year.
So the White House needs to hear from people who care about Sudan these two priorities: aid, getting the assistance to the people that need it, and protection in whatever form that can take, particularly in neutralizing the Air Force and its bombing of the civilian populations. Aid and protection. President Obama needs to hear from everyone who cares about Sudan because the situation is dire for those people.
The
Thanks for all your
Europeans need
work.
to do that as well, and mostly the Africans, because the African
Yeah.
Union should do their job in intervening in Sudan again.
And
Thank
the
you.
U.S. can help lead it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Omer.
Thanks.
Okay.